Welcome to the Invincible podcast with Lee Judges in the building and Jurrien is coming home. It's coming home. It's coming. Is it coming?
Yeah, I've said it all along.
No,
I've said it all along. Why? I think it will. I think it is.
I think it is. Why don't you think it is?
Well, I just can't believe that the luck can go on for that long. I mean, actually, before the tournament started, we had a show, and I looked back at my predictions, and my predictions were pretty much spot on, not only for who was going to come top. It was spot on.
You said Spain would get to the final.
No, what I said...
Got your book out again.
I predicted...
That was rubbish last time.
I predicted the top two for every group, bar one, and I said England will win it. And I've actually...
No, but hold on. You said it was your prediction's pretty much spot on. Did
you
predict Spain would get to the final?
Well, the question you posed was two. The first one was who would win it. I said England. And the second one would be what's the top two in each group. I got every single one correct other than Austria. I didn't have in the top two, but I said it would be France and Holland. And I didn't have Austria, and Austria came top of that group. Other than that, I was completely spot on.
It's very hard to predict who's going to
win.
Well, no,
I predicted every single one. And I also said that England would win it, and you were arguing that Portugal would win it.
No,
yes.
Right.
If you go back and look at that show,
I said Portugal definitely had a shout to it.
Were better than England.
I at the tournament, when the tournament started after that first game.
I'm talking about before the tournament, before you.
Okay, before the tournament.
Before the tournament,
after
you were saying Portugal was better than England.
After the first game, when everyone was losing it, I said, listen, it was poor, but I still think England will go on all the way to the final. Right? After the group stages, when everyone was losing it, I said, I'm looking at a side of the group, England will go to the finals. They'll beat Slovakia, they'll beat Switzerland, they'll beat Netherlands. Everyone's mocking me, laughing at me. They're in the final. Right? And I think they'll win it. Not because they're the best team, because Spain are the best team in this tournament. They've been brilliant. But you don't have to be the best team to win a tournament. You just have to turn up on the day.
Well, they've proved that up to now.
And England...
You need luck.
Yeah,
and they've had massive amount of luck.
Who have?
England.
So have Spain. Spain were very fortunate against... Spain were very fortunate against Germany.
Yeah, they were. Remember,
fortunate.
Fulkrug missed that.
So,
absolute...
They hit the post.
Yeah, that's true.
So
they give up chances.
And that's why I think England win. I totally agree with you with the draw. England, and that's why I've always
That's where
said
the luck, massive luck.
Yeah, that's what I was saying all along. They decided the draw on.
England.
If we was on the other side of the draw, I don't think we would have made it to the final.
No, because I think it'd been something. But also with England, which is a good. They had the easiest group as well. Like, you know what I mean? They was never tested in the group. It was. You know, like I did think at one stage I was going to go out there when Jude Bellingham got that wonder goal. It was a wonder goal. Wonder goal. And I'm looking at it and thinking, how the hell are we going out in this tournament like? But once we got that goal, I've said from all along,
we've got the clutch players, England.
We've got the players. Yeah. Not only have we got the players, Robbie, on the first year, we have got game changers. Like Watkins would get into the Spanish team.
Yeah.
Watkins would get into any team other than the England team. So would Palmer.
Tony.
So would Tony. Like they're all desperate. All these teams are all desperate for a top striker. Spain lack that. That's the one thing. Germany, you know, as much as we love Havertz, missed chances, too many chances. Haven't got what we've got. We've got it in abundance.
Yeah,
got it in abundance.
And they've got players, like you said. You know what I mean? Bellingham stepped up in that game, even to try that. With a minute to go. Who tried that? That's a clutch player, right? Then you've got players like Saka. When we were down in that game, who scores a wonder goal? Saka. You know what I mean? They've got these sort of players. They got Kane. They got all these players that in any given moment, with one chance, can bury it. And that's why I think, you know, yet Spain are the best team. Spain have played the best football. They've been the most enjoyable team to watch. But that's not always the team that win it. And if it goes to penalties, we got some good penalty takers as well.
But the reasons you've just said were the reasons I said before the tournament that England would win it, because they've got the better players.
But you just said at the start of the show that they're not going to win it.
I don't think they will win it now.
Why?
Because of the performances and the teams they've come up against haven't been as good as Spain.
Netherlands put in a good performance they put in a good performance England against Netherlands.
Yeah.
Outplayed them in the first half. A lot of people thought that the Netherlands were going to be the team on the front foot.
Germany?
Yeah.
So, like, you know,
it was.
so you'd
but
argue
I've
that
watched.
Spain were the better team in that game. I would argue. I thought Germany were.
I think we're all agreed that Spain have been the best team in the tournament to watch, and also the performances and the games have been the best. However, England for me have the best players, and that was the reason I thought before the tournament they would win it. I just think the performances of those players, for whatever reason, apart from I thought the first 45 minutes against Holland were the best they've played. I thought that was really good, but they still relied on luck. On that penalty, I just didn't think it was a penalty, and I think it's come into it. I think England have been lucky the whole tournament, and it sums up tournament football that it's just you don't always get the best team. So I'm not saying they can't win it. I just think when you look at Spain and England on the previous, and I normally make my predictions based on performances. Recent performances, and if you look at the recent performances of Spain and England, you'd have to say that Spain have got to be the favourites, and Spain are more likely to win it.
Do you know? I think that was a penalty. I don't know.
Not for me. Not for me.
Do you know what someone said was a very true thing? If that was outside the box, would that have been given as a free kick?
Sometimes they are. Sometimes I don't think it was.
Exactly. See what you just said there? That's exactly it. Sometimes they are. Sometimes they're not.
And the thing is with VAR, I don't know what it is if it's a clear and obvious error. I don't think it was a clear and obvious error.
Yeah, I guess
and
so.
Also,
it was
you
Kane
have to say,
hitting,
well, Kane's kicked it.
Yeah,
is it him? If to be really honest, and the other side of it is that Saka handballed it.
I didn't see that.
So they've highlighted that today. His hand that went on to Kane
in the build-up.
In the build-up. So they missed that. VAR. Listen,
I guess a bit lucky.
You in football, I don't care. It's fine lines. You need that little bit of luck, you know.
Especially in tournaments. It's not the Premier League where I would say that it evens itself out over the course of
7 games.
Yes,
isn't it?
7 games.
Yeah.
And we've been lucky, and if the luck carries on, we'll win it.
I don't think they've been necessarily lucky every game. I think they've just had the bit.
But they've played badly.
They've played badly, but sometimes if you've got more quality than another team, that's what makes you win it. It's not always luck. That's not luck.
They didn't have any quality games. I mean, Slovenia, 57th world ranking. 57th. Yeah. They didn't even beat them. They struggled.
No, they did, but they didn't. Yeah. But then who else didn't? Netherlands didn't beat Slovenia either. In 90 minutes.
Netherlands haven't been that great.
No, but I'm saying in 90 minutes they didn't.
Netherlands haven't been that great.
The thing is with tournament football, and particularly in this day and age now of international football, it's moments. What I've seen a lot of teams do is basically defend, and it's very, very hard to break these teams down now. Like they're more organised, they know how to defend.
That's Southgate's tactic,
and Southgate has gone to that little bit here. What I'm going to do is going to make us hard to beat. And I'm going to rely on one of the guns to do us.
And it's worked.
And it's worked.
That's not always luck.
Watkins, you know, at the end of the day, you can't say that's a masterclass what he done yesterday. You have to have that little bit of luck. He's come on there and look, listen, it's a fantastic finish.
It is a masterclass.
Well,
it's obvious to take Kane off. You shouldn't even started Kane.
It's a masterclass. No, but hold on. You say that.
He's being played because of his name.
You say that. Kane scored that penalty. That's a big moment.
Yeah. Pretty much there's loads of England players that would have scored that penalty.
You can't say that, Julian.
It's a penalty. You should score a penalty.
Julian, that's a pressurised moment right now.
And there's other players on that pitch that
there are other players that can score it, but he scored it.
Okay,
you can't just leave him out neither.
You can't play him because he scored a penalty.
To me, he should start the final. He's a big player. Now, listen, what I'm saying is this,
big
right?
moments.
When you say that, can't just put everything down to luck.
He hasn't got the movement.
It was Gareth Southgate, right? I criticise this guy a lot, right? But it was him who said, you know what, I'm bringing on Ollie Watkins and Palmer. He could have brought on other people.
Yeah, I'll give him that.
He could have brought Tony on. But he didn't. He decided, for this game, I'm going to bring Ollie Watkins on. And Cole Palmer, the other guy he's brought on, has done the assist. And Ollie Watkins has scored. That is a masterclass.
Yeah, it might have been a better masterclass to have played from the beginning.
Hold on. Because what's-the-name didn't make his changes. He's now bringing on Xerxes and those guys after.
Yep.
Right, to react. Why did he make that with 15 minutes to go?
He made some good substitutions, Koeman, and stopped us playing in the second half because we was dominating that. So he did do something, but he had to do something in that game.
But he weren't proactive enough.
The one thing I will say about listen, I'm never going to be his favourite and I'm never going to be a fan of his, but two things that I've got to say that he's done really well, in my opinion, is that he's not listened to the media and he's not listened to the fans. Because
all the people who said drop Saka.
Everybody was been saying about getting drop Saka, and he kept faith with him, and he's proved it right. He's been really good in the last couple of games. And the substitutions yesterday, he's been criticised, but those substitutions were spot on. They were spot on.
If you make 2 substitutions and one provides the assist and the other one scores, that ain't luck.
And I will say this with Harry Kane. People like Julian saying that he shouldn't have been playing. He scored in the round before that, with the
Harry Kane
with the header.
Harry Kane is a joint top goal scorer in the tournament now.
He
can win the Golden Boot.
When it matters, he does score goals. And I know, it was a penalty yesterday, but the header before that was important.
And you know what, as well, Lee, right? The thing is as well. Again, why you got to big up Southgate? He took him off. That's a big player to take off.
Well, yeah, but I think that's the right decision. I think
it was the right decision.
It was obviously the right decision.
But there's many managers we know over the years. There's many managers who wouldn't have done that. They'd be like, leave him on to it because they just
Portugal didn't do it.
They didn't take off. There's the example. Wouldn't take off Ronaldo when it's obvious that Ronaldo needed to come off, and it's obvious that maybe you need to bring on like a Jota or somebody like that. He didn't do it, and they're out.
And quite rightly. And that was the discussion we had before the tournament, that you were basing the fact that Portugal were better than England on Ronaldo, because what you're doing...
He was poor.
He's been poor, and he's 39 years old.
I wasn't basing it on Ronaldo. I named out a load, and I didn't say they were better. I said their squad is as good as England's, right?
You can't turn around anyway and say 1 minute
you just said they're not going to win it.
And
now you're saying they're going to win it.
Talk about keeping your powder dry.
What are you deciding on? Are they winning it or not?
Yes, let's have it now. What's going on?
Just tell us what it is. Just tell us.
All right. I believe Spain will win.
Right, that's it.
Cool.
No, I believe Spain will win. I believe Spain will win, but I'm not discounting England. And I actually think the players...
There's only 2 teams in it.
No.
But I'll tell you what, that's like basically saying, well, Portugal definitely not going to win it.
No,
I'll tell you what, Germany ain't going to win it.
But you can't always call it. It's going to be tight. And one of the reasons it's going to be tight...
Of course it's going to be tight. It's a final.
Yes, but here's the thing. I think it will suit Southgate's game to be playing a more attacking team than having to break another team down.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So I think we've got a chance, but if I had to call it one or the other, I would say Spain, marginally.
Yeah, what it does mean is something that we raised in a previous show. You weren't really having it in that show, but I'm raising it again, right? Very important players. Saka, Declan Rice have played every single minute of this...
No, Saka come off
this tournament. Saka's come off a couple of...
Rice hasn't, though.
Right near the end. Declan Rice played every minute. Saka the other night played 120 minutes before, that quarter-final. Right? These players are going to be knackered. Mentally and physically, this tournament takes a lot out of you. If you win it, you're going to have to celebrate afterwards, come back to the country, parade, this, that. You're going to need a big holiday after that. If you lose it, you're going to be absolutely gutted. You're going to be mentally drained. I mean, we've got 2 goalkeepers. I know they ain't started, but we've got 2 goalkeepers that have made it all the way to the final. That's a number 1 and number 2 keeper, right? We kick off a season in a few weeks' time, really, in mid-August. Preseason starts just over, 10 days?
Well, they're back in training Monday, aren't they? So I expect Declan Rice to be back at the training ground on Monday, reporting at 10 o'clock.
Now, these players...
There's a game on Saturday.
They're going to be off for about 3 weeks, aren't they?
Yep.
Yeah.
And even when they come back, there's no guarantee that they'll be fit and ready. I mean, if you're off for 3 weeks...
They ain't going to America.
I think they could at least come to Philadelphia. But do you remember...
Now, these are key players... 2 key players that might not start that first game.
Yep. But then do you remember my counter-argument to that? Is that our closest rivals are Manchester City. And Manchester City actually have more players involved in that final and more key players involved in that final.
How many players they got involved in the
final?
They've
got Rodri.
Yeah.
They have Foden. They've got Walker. And they have... Who's the other Man City player in the England team? Big one. There's 3 Man City players in the England team. Stones. So they've actually got 4 key players in the final. They're our closest rivals. I'm not saying we won't be effective.
But we don't play them.
Are going to be more effective.
We don't play them until down in September.
But they've still got games.
How many players have Wolves got in that final?
They've still got games.
How many players have Wolves got in that final?
Well, Wolves had...
How many players have Aston Villa got in that final? I'm looking at the immediate first couple of games because everybody will be back by... those later games, Tottenham, City, everybody will be back by then. But those first couple games.
Aston Villa have got 2 key players in their in the England squad.
Watkins, who's just he's barely started a game.
Konza.
And Konza, but they're still
Konza's
going to
barely
be
started
there.
a game.
Still gonna be
I
there.
know, but they barely played. I'm talking about players
They're
that
still not going to have the preparation. And Villa and Wolves don't have the depth of squad that Arsenal have.
No, but do you think that they'll be fresher? Because and a couple of absolute key players in Declan Rice and Saka who start. I mean, those guys are fit.
He ain't even
got.
Declan Rice gets 4 weeks off from me. You know what I mean? I'll talk to him now. If it was me, he doesn't go on the American soil, nor does Saka. They
can't. I don't think they can.
Go. If they say, like I know Jurrien said about going for one game.
If they win the final, right next, I'm just going off of the women's when they won it. Yeah. Then they came back to England. Remember, big parade, Trafalgar Square, and all that. Come on, man! You don't go. You're not going to go on holiday the next day.
Would you go to that? Would you go to the Trafalgar Square?
Yeah, I'll be there. And then people are going to want to meet you. And probably the Prime Minister and this. All things like that. You'll get away on your holiday later on in the week.
Yeah, Wednesday.
Then you need at least 2 weeks of doing no football. You've just had basically their season finished. Well, their season ain't finished. They've gone straight from the season into England camp. Remember, because the England camp before this, all those games, all the way to the final, they're going to need 2 to 3 weeks of doing nothing to do with football.
But what I've said is the Arsenal squad has got greater depth than the Villa squad and the Wolves squad. And even Wolves had 3 players.
Not in the final.
Playing for Portugal.
What about the final, Julian?
Okay, I understand
because those
that.
guys who played for
what I'm saying
Portugal,
is we've got
they went out over a week ago.
We've got 2 key players that are involved. But I believe we've got the depth of squad for the teams we're playing in those first 2 weeks, which is Wolves and Aston Villa. The Aston Villa one is going to be a trickier game.
I'd like to see Declan Rice playing against Aston Villa
and I think
Saka.
he will be. I think it does help us that our first game is home to Wolves.
Do you think those 2 will start?
Yeah, I think that they'll have 3 weeks off. That'll take them they'll have one game in the Emirates Cup, and that'll be
I think they're
That's their pre-season.
I think they're in
That'll be their
contention,
pre-season,
but I believe we've got the squad to be able to beat Wolves at home with or without those.
So do I, but I'm just saying it's a little bit of a worry because even you're saying one game. That's your pre-season, one game.
Yeah, because I'll tell you what,
the other players' pre-season is reporting on Monday. Training, running, weight,
build up and all that,
recovery, all that sort of stuff. Then go to America, play games, weights, running, training, all that, relaxing. Come back, couple of games in the Emirates Cup, training, thing, and then the season starts. That's the pre-season, not just the game you play. It's all the stuff around it.
But the other side of it is that they're also match fit because they've played games in
I know they are, but now they're going to need 2 weeks of just doing nothing. 2 to 3 weeks.
They're not going to be like sinking 20 pints a night. And,
they might be if they win.
And full English breakfast. They're not like that.
They're not like that.
They're not like that.
They might have a couple of beers one day and all that.
I don't think they will. It's not like they're Grealish that they go out. They're both. From a maturity perspective,
well, I don't know if Saka drinks, does he? I don't think.
But you know what? The thing is, it's not even a drinking thing, right? It's a matter of that in football, they're athletes, isn't it?
Yeah, and they've got the mentality to be athletes.
Yeah, but the thing is, when you're an athlete and you're like, really primed, when you take a couple of weeks off, it's like, for instance, let's use an analogy of us, right? Which is a terrible analogy. But if you don't go to the gym for a couple of weeks, when you go back.
It's a tough one.
It's tough. You can't, I don't know about you guys, I can't have 2 weeks off the gym and immediately go back and hit the routine I was doing 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I've got to ease back into it.
Yeah,
100%.
It is going to take them time.
And these are athletes at the top of their game who are going to be coming up against other athletes at the top of their game in opposition.
It's going to take time, but I still believe...
It's a little bit of a worry.
If I compare it with the other teams around us, and I'm not concerned. If every other team had no one at the Euros or the Copa America, and Arsenal had a vast majority in the final, I'd be far more worried. I think it's evenly spread.
Wolves got no players in that final,
but they've got a much smaller squad.
Don't matter. They've got a good starting 11.
It's not as good as Arsenal's.
It's not as good as Arsenal's, but they've got a good starting 11.
It's not nearly as good as Arsenal's.
I know. But it's still a little bit of a leveler when you're, it doesn't level it up completely.
It doesn't level it up.
If I'm a Wolves player and there's no Declan Rice, no Saka, I'm feeling a lot better.
For me,
Are you, Lee?
Yeah,
Are you not
well,
feeling a lot
but-
more
but-
happy?
of course.
But if Declan Rice is out and Partey's in, you think, Declan Rice not there, great. Oh, Partey's there. It's like we've got that level of squad there.
Yeah, but who comes alongside Partey? Because Partey and Declan Rice are the two. So, you're going to play Jorginho, who's been in the tournament as well.
You don't necessarily play that double pivot, do you?
And there's a history of...
Especially Wolves at home.
There's a history of, over the years, seeing players come back from tournaments and not...
It will take them. It will take them a couple of weeks to get into it. But I do agree with Jurrien. I'd rather be playing like Wolves, Brighton. Who's the other one we got in that?
Got Villa at home.
Villa away, which is a
Villa
tough
away,
one.
sorry,
You know what I mean? But I think that's another week down the line. We're just going to have to manage it.
Do you know what, right? What I want to ask you too, right, is that new season coming ahead, big season. We want to win the league. We've nearly done it 2 years in a row now. I've just missed out. I want you to give me one player out of that Arsenal squad that you feel is going to be a key player this season for Arsenal. Player that probably, you think is going to have a player you think is going to have a big season. It's going to be absolutely key for Arsenal.
Well, shall I go first?
Go on.
I'm going to say Kai Havertz.
Ooh,
And the reason I'm going to
Kai
say
Havertz.
Yeah, the reason I'm going to say Kai Havertz is because I thought he was brilliant from January up to the end of the season. I also think if you look on first seasons, that was a good season for him, good foundation to kick on again, And I just think that watching him in the Euros, I thought he was fantastic. Apart from his finishing, he's got to get in pre-season, work on his finishing. But if he scores the goals, hopefully the chances that he gets and creates and scores, I do think he's a big player for Arsenal now.
He's going to be under a lot of pressure this season, right? If we don't sign a striker, which at the moment is starting to look like we won't, right?
But I think he can handle that,
the demands on him are going to be a little bit different because the last season he started off in midfield, then he sort of moved later on sort of into the sort of false number 9 type striker, right? I think if Arsenal don't sign a striker this summer, which at the moment is starting to look like they may not, because the price is being quoted for your Osimhen's and your Gorkarez's and all this is crazy. Sesko didn't come. Then if he is that striker, fans are going to readjust their expectations.
Yeah,
so
and I will as well.
First expectation probably is going to be like, well, I want 20 goals. Would that be your expectation?
Yeah,
for
and
him?
I think they can do it because I'm going on the back of from January to May. I think that he might have got 14 goals. So if you put he's only got to get 6 before that.
20 Premier League goals.
20 Premier League goals. I think he's capable of doing that. And I also, I think towards the back end of last season, with the pressure on and all that, I thought he was Arsenal's best player. So I'm going to back him. Some of the stuff he done in for Germany, he makes them click, but he's got to finish those chances. But I'm a big fan of his, and I think that role suits the way Arsenal play, and I think he's going to be I think he's going to be key.
Julian, what's your key player?
Well, I'll go the complete opposite of a player that underachieved last season, and that the expectations I think will be lower for him, but his all-round play for me will exceed those expectations, which is Gabriel Martinelli.
Yeah, good shout.
Yeah,
Expectations will be lower.
I think because if you look at the season before last, I think he had 15 goals and 5 assists, and he kind of overachieved because he only had a expected goal of something like 9.3, and he came in at 15. Whereas last season he only scored 6 goals and had 4 assists. But for me, there was reasons why he underachieved last season, which was there was a few different factors. The first one was I wouldn't say he had major injuries, but when you look at what he did, he was slightly off form. But when he came back, he came on as a substitute against I think it was Palace, and he scored 2 goals. The first game back after Dubai, and he scored 2 goals. He looked phenomenal when he came on, and for the next, I think it was something like 6 games, he started every game. Where Arsenal were absolutely on fire. Yeah. It was when we scoring goals left, right, centre, and he was brilliant. And then against Sheffield United, he got taken out by Ainul, the the centre.
What?
That's the centre half. Sheffield United's captain. He gashed it. He took him out.
Bit of a bummer, isn't he? Like,
yeah. Well, do you not remember? You remember?
I remember he got injured that day. Cut his foot open.
He cut his foot.
Is that his name?
Anal, yeah. That's his first name. Anal. I can't pronounce his second name.
I would have rather you have gone with the second name, please. Couldn't you have gone with the second name?
I can't. It's so like.
Surely that is not his first name.
His first name's Anal.
No, I'm not having it.
Well, why didn't you give us his second name, man?
I can't pronounce his second name.
Well, give it a go.
I can't pronounce his second name. But the point I'm making, at the time, Arteta said it was a minor injury. It was just a cut on the foot.
It took him out for a good 3 or 4 weeks.
He didn't start out of the next 11 games. He only started the last Premier League game.
Yeah. And
it totally disrupted his season. And that combined with Trossard's unbelievable form, he couldn't get back into the team. Now, someone like Martinelli, I love a lot about him, but even when he plays badly, the effort he puts in is quite incredible, and the work rate. And I think, given a run in the team again, which I think he'll get next season, he'll be one of our top players. And there was one moment last season, I think it was against Wolves, and something like the 35th minute, and I think it was Zinchenko made a mistake, and he chased back. He came back, chased back, made the interception. But what really got me, about 48 seconds later, he was hitting the post the other end. He just does not stop. And with that kind of work rate and that skill, and given a run in the team, I think he's going to be. The key player.
So you said you don't think he'll be under pressure?
No, I think the expectation levels.
The expectation
levels, because compared with what Lee was saying, was that our expectations of Havertz now is so much higher than at the begining of last season.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, yeah.
Whereas now, Martinelli's expectations, because of what people would consider a poor season, we also, so the left-hand side of Arsenal's play, who was a little bit disjointed last season, I think Edu and Arteta will address that, and it'll be a far more stable side.
Do you know what, right? I think Gabriel Martinelli is under a lot of pressure next season, right? It could almost boil down to, with his Arsenal career, and this is going to sound strange, yeah? Almost like a make or break season for Martinelli. I think he can't afford to have another season like last season where he was a little bit underwhelming. That position on that left-hand side, number one, you got Trossard there, like you said, as he was brilliant when he came in.
Kept him
right?
out, couldn't get in.
Scored goals, assists, like he was brilliant, right? But also, it's one of those positions where there's a lot of players out there that are good, that Arsenal have been looking at in the transfer window. All right, they've been trying to look more on the right-hand side, but a lot of players that can play on the right, can play on the left. There's a lot of really exciting wide players. We've seen like Nico Williams, for instance. Let's say Arsenal did manage to pull that off and bring in a Nico Williams. You know, he's been playing on the left-hand side for Spain. You know, even though he can play predominantly like right-hand side, he can play on the left-hand side. That puts lots of pressure on Martinelli. There's other players out there that, you know, I've linked with Chiesa and all these, and many other wingers, Bakayoko, lots of wide players, because there's a real sort of lack of strikers. So I think Arsenal are one of these clubs that are relying on wide players to score goals, to have lots of assists, to be really dynamic. Now, I love Martinelli, and I think he can do it. I think he can be that guy. But he has to show it next season, I feel. I think his career will be in problems at Arsenal. A bit like, say, a Smith Rowe, where we saw how brilliant he was, but then he had the setback of injuries and then lack of game time, and then over a period of time, other people have come in, or Arsenal looking outside and thinking, oh, you know, why don't we go and get that Marino guy who plays for Sociedad? He looks like he could, yeah, I mean, and all of a sudden now you had that position, you're under threat. So I think it's an absolutely massive season for Martinelli. He has to turn up this year. He has to. He's in a battle.
Yeah, and that's another reason why I think he'll be our standout player, because you're quite right. He is under pressure. He's probably under slightly more pressure. I mean, every Arsenal player play for a team like Arsenal, you're always going to be under pressure. But I do agree with you. I think he's under slightly more pressure because of the performances he had. But I think there was mitigating circumstances for those pressures, and that when they'll be resolved, which is an injury, which it wasn't a muscular injury that's going to repeat itself. It was a cut. That's now healed.
Yeah,
and I think Arteta and Edu will sort out that left side, and I think he will.
And the other problem he has as well, right? If he doesn't perform, is that he is a very valuable player. So and Arsenal can look at it and say, well, it ain't really working. I'm not too sure no more. Let's move him on and get 50, 60, 70 million.
You'd hope more than that.
Because he's a player of real value. So he's got to have a huge season. He really is under a lot of pressure.
He is under pressure, but also you have to look at it that as poor as he was for Arsenal at times, he still got in the Brazilian side or squad. So
he's only played 10 minutes.
Yeah, but he's still in the squad. So he is fought off. He's fought a lot.
Yeah, no, he is. He is. He's quality. He's quality.
I think maybe even just going over there, Julian, not being part of that, even though it's 10 minutes, that's give him some minutes in his legs and training and all that.
Because he didn't get enough games.
Enough games. Right. He comes back now, hits the ground running in the pre-season. I think that you're right. I do think that he'll do a lot better. And I think that
he has to.
One thing that, and I do agree with this as well, that left side's got to be sorted. It was never sorted, and I felt that was a little bit against him at times. Straight away you look at the right-hand side, Saka,
Odegaard, understanding, haven't they?
Yeah, and White are all there week in, week out. It was completely changing all the time, and he has to do a lot more defensive work than Saka. I know Saka's been doing it for England, doing it very, very well, but in the team, he is the one that left side does get isolated a little bit, especially when Zinchenko was playing. So I think that's exactly against him.
That's exactly why I pointed out that moment against Wolves when he chased back after Zinchenko gave the ball away. He chased back, which White is a more stable defender than Zinchenko.
Stays in that position a little bit.
All of these things you're saying are very true, and I agree with everything you're saying, but Mikel Arteta is ruthless.
He is ruthless.
Right? Zinchenko, who you just named, who had a great season the season before, could quite possibly be sold this season because he didn't have a great season, and now he's looking at, I've got better that I could possibly put in there. Kieran Tierney didn't suit the system, weren't really delivering as far as he's concerned. He didn't really...
Bosch gone.
So I really do feel it's huge for Martinelli this year. You know what I mean? I really, he's a fan favourite. But then Arteta doesn't really care about fan favourites because Ramsdale was a fan favourite. Tierney was a fan favourite.
That's true.
Right, so it's huge for him this year. I mean, I think him more than any other player who's been a regular in the team, he could be looking over his shoulder a bit and really needs to go and work on everything to make sure everything clicks. And we know he can do it. We know he's absolutely... I love him as a player. He's absolute quality. But now it's a big season ahead for him. Really, really big season. The player that I've picked didn't, really have a season last year, and that's Jurrien Timber, right? Because he was out with that ACL, kept him out, injured. Back, he came back for that last game of the season. I know it was only one game, but he looked pretty sharp in that game. I think this is going to be a big season for Jurrien Timber. I really do. I remember when we signed him, and I remember last year when he was at pre-season, all of us was there watching him. And I think all of us at that time, we all thought that in pre-season, he looked our best player. Even better than Rice and that. We was all like, hey, this guy, man, hey, he looks quality. Good on the ball, strong, quick, able to play, multiple positions across that back line. We were all looking at him thinking, this guy's going to be a dead cert in the team. And then he gets that ACL, out for a whole season. Once you're out of sight, you're out of mind. No one's talking about you no more. You're gone. New season's coming up. New signings perhaps coming in. Calafiori looks like he could be signed. A lot of people saying that he's going to play maybe on the left-hand side as a left back. He's under pressure. Without even playing last season, Timber's under pressure because you've got Calafiori. What's going to happen with Zinchenko? What's going to happen with Kivior? Is he going to stay into play in that position as cover? Tomiyasu did well when he played over there on that left-hand side. So Timber has got, again, a similar sort of thing that happened with Smith Rowe, that's happened to Martinelli. He's got to fight his way back into the team. But he looks like a real fighter to me. He looks like a guy that if he's fully fit, he's going to want to prove a point. He's been missing all last season. He's got a point to prove. He's a player that's not really on other teams' radar because they didn't really get to see him in a full season. And I don't think a lot of teams realise, or a lot of fans and everything, in other clubs especially, even in our club, realise just how good this player is. He is a top quality player. Didn't go with the Netherlands to the Euros. He will have a full pre-season. He's fully... I think this is a guy that, especially at the start of the season, is going to be really important when we're talking about players that have been away at Euros, tiredness, that he's going to be rearing to go. He's going to be fit. He's going to be strong. And I think he'll start a lot of games at the start of the season. And if he does really well, it'll be very difficult to dislodge. And that's why I think he's going to be a very, very important player, because he weren't around last year. And he's going to be around this year. And this guy could be a key player for Arsenal.
I think
key player.
I think two things on that, like to see how the injury is, because I even look at Van Dijk, who I still think is a fantastic player, nowhere near the same player that he was before that injury.
Look at Bellerin before that.
Bellerin.
Well, Van Dijk had a great season last year for.
But he's still not the player. So we have to see how much that takes out of him. And the key for me now is actually where he's going to play. Because you're right, there's going to be no Saliba. Don't forget, Saliba's not going to be on this. You go on about Declan Rice, and you go on
another
about
one. Saliba.
Saliba's not going to be on this tour. So where does he play?
Could be Calafiori playing there.
Yeah. So where does he play? I don't know. And if he does play, like, he could play the right side central defence, or play right back and White comes inside. I've been really interested in this tour to see where he actually plays and what position they're looking at. Because if someone's I was reading something the other day that, you know, he potentially can play midfield as well. Like,
he can. He's played as a defensive midfielder. He plays for, when he was at Ajax, he played as a centre back. You know, he's played, I think, for the national team before in midfield. He's a very good player, very good, but slept on because we just didn't get to see him last year.
Yeah.
And I just got a feeling for him. And
he did look very good. It wasn't a whole game. I think it was 18 minutes he came on. But for those 18 minutes, he looked like he looked sharp. He didn't look
strong.
Like, and it was a mentality thing that he didn't shirk any tackles. And I know from having that injury is that it's very difficult to get over the mental issue of actually.
You still haven't got over it now.
No, well, on a skills basis, I have, but yes, probably.
You've had more operations than the board game you have, haven't you? Like, you know what I mean, like, you have another operation with your knee operation, shoulder.
I've had 3 on my knee. I've had 2 on my shoulder,
on your knee?
And I've had
same knee?
Yeah.
Gosh, it wasn't the army, man. You had a lot of injuries, didn't you?
Yeah, well.
Still, though, you know what? I forgot, actually. You still managed to beat him in that crossbar challenge.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. Well done.
Thank you. Because it didn't involve tackling or any real movement, but from a dead ball position and from a skills perspective, you don't lose it, especially when you practice every day.
I think it's going to be huge for Timber. Give me one more shout for another player. You got another player that you think could have a huge season, like
so
what that hasn't or.
Yeah.
No, just someone else. Someone else that you think.
I think I'm gonna. You know, like, it's an obvious one, but I think Odegaard, because he hasn't had a tournament, and I think that he's going to be fresh coming into it and all that. Like, and I just think he was outstanding last season. And I just think if he can hit those levels again, just go on a little bit more, and I think that he will because of his age and everything like that. But I do think not being at the tournament, I would push. I would say Odegaard.
Yeah, I mean, Odegaard would be the obvious one. Saliba would be another obvious one, how he's come on. The one I would say is less obvious would be Raya. And I think he had an excellent season last season. But to begin with, he had people like yourself.
Doubting him,
yeah, well, more than doubting him.
I'm still not convinced.
Well, okay, but you're more convinced than you were.
Glove.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. I think he has made,
And I think I
He's
heard
certainly made
you
impressions.
towards the end of last season admit that Raya was a better goalkeeper than Ramsdale for the first time. So if you're even admitting that
on the floor.
on the floor,
Yeah,
what about on crosses?
What
What about on crosses?
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot in that.
The stats would say otherwise.
No, he's better at crosses.
Better than
you know what I
crosses. And also the way he plays, it's more difficult to ascertain whether he's a better shot stopper because the way he plays. Well, he plays the game in a way that.
But he's a good penalty
Shot
saver.
stopper, Ramsdale.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's the weakest part of his
Yeah,
game.
but it's almost like the defender that does the last ditch challenge. The players like Saliba don't have to because it's almost like the last ditch challenge. They've fouled somewhere else, or the team's fouled somewhere else.
But listen, I agree with that. Like David Seaman, was a good shot stopper at the end of the day, and I think that's the only weakness in his game.
Well, no, it's a weakness. I just don't think he has to do it as much.
Well, you do,
and I think that
you do have to. A goalkeeper at some stage, Julian, believe it or not, has to save shots.
And they do, and he does. I don't think it's a weakness, but I think one of the reasons he made a few mistakes, which were massively highlighted. He had a lot of people on his back, including yourself. And I think once Ramsdale, and I don't want to see Ramsdale go, but I think we need to be realistic. He's not going to be there next season. Is that Raya will be absolutely undisputed number one, and I think with that extra bit of confidence, he can cut out those mistakes.
I will say this about Ramsdale. I'm watching him yesterday as well. Like, you know what I mean? You've got to have a fantastic mentality knowing you're not in the side and be happy for it all that, and even very, very supportive
Team player.
with Arsenal. Team player,
He
very
is.
much of a team player, and that has gone up in my estimation. But because of that, but I do think that with Ray, it's a great point you make. Is that his first season was a good season, a little bit like Havertz.
Yeah.
Good
It's
start,
going to be more confident,
giving
now,
him a
isn't
little
it?
bit more confidence. And I do think that Arsenal, even though that he does make a few mistakes like he did at Tottenham and all that, but when he's got the ball at his feet, there's a little bit more confidence around the team that we can play.
It's
So
more
that's a good shout.
risk reward as well. The way he plays, he is going to make mistakes because of that risk that they do.
Here's another player that I think is under pressure, needs a big season, otherwise this will be his last Arsenal season, but can produce a big season. And if he produces a big season, this guy, and that's Gabriel Jesus.
Yeah, I knew he was going to say that. I knew he was going to say it.
When he came in that first season,
Good build up.
Good build up.
Yeah.
when he came in that first season before he got injured,
Sensational.
unbelievable. Like, he was literally the rebirth of Arsenal.
Yeah.
Like it was actually him and Zinchenko, innit? They were like a breath of fresh air, the style, the dynamism, just everything about him. And then he got that injury, and then
That's what I'm saying
he's
about
not
Timber.
been the same since. Now he's going to have had a full pre-season. We're hoping he's going to be completely injury-free and over that injury. He's had various operations on that and stuff like that. We're hoping he's playing without pain. If this guy can get back to what we saw when he was at... Sorry, my phone ringing there. If he can get back to what we saw, that will be some player. We're talking about strikers. He could be that guy who comes in, bags a loads of goals. He could be that guy who covers that right-hand side, if possible. He could be a very, very important player, but it's make or break, I feel, for him. I feel if he doesn't do that, he's going to be sold, because you look at his age, he's got a big profile still as he's not in the Brazilian team, but Brazilian, what he's done in the past, he's not old,
He's reaching his peak.
He'd be a player of value that Arsenal will look at and say, all right, well, let's move him on and just cash in now and get back, let's make a 40 million off him or something like that. So this is huge for him. Huge season for Gabriel Jesus.
I'll be really honest. When we signed him, I wasn't that excited about the signing. But when I see him play, especially over there in Nuremberg that time, I thought, wow. And up until that injury, he was just like... And I also don't forget the beginning of the run that we had at Nottingham Forest. He was outstanding that night. Do you remember?
And he was playing with an injury.
He was playing with that injury at the time, and he was outstanding. And if he is injury-free and they have sorted it out, And my worry is if they haven't sorted it out, then that's a big worry because, of all the medical experts. But if he has sorted that out, he could be a player that could...
He can be like a new player.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it wasn't just that game at Forest. Do you remember the game at Seville?
Oh, the turn and all that.
The turn. What he did was just incredible. That setup, what he did was brilliant. It showed. And then on top of that, he did the finish from outside the area.
Started the Champions League, he was good as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. He was.
It's just
that game against Seville. We actually 10 minutes into that game, the atmosphere was unbelievable. We said, we're going to struggle here tonight.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And he was the game changer, wasn't he? He was. Yeah.
He was man of the match.
Yeah. It's a big season for him. If he turns up, it's going to be if he's good, it's going to be great for Arsenal. But I think from a personal point of view, if he doesn't turn up this season, I think they'll move him on.
But it's the injury that's prohibited him.
Yeah, well,
And
that's
also,
it. Is he going to be over that injury now?
But also, that injury, it wasn't the same as Timber's injury. It's not a reconstruction of an ACL. It's more cartilage, and there is obviously an issue there. But from reading the reports, it's not been a major issue. It's just been something that they haven't quite been able to resolve. And if they have resolved it, which with modern science and the fact that Arsenal must have the best medical team, then I'm confident they will resolve it and he will get back to what he was.
Well, let's hope so. The season is starting to get nearer and nearer. Pre-season starting. You're going to the
Arsenal
Wood game.
Wood. It's an Arsenal 11.
Yeah, but that'd be just the youngsters, isn't it?
Well, I'm hoping that there'll be some Arsenal players because they've already done a pre-season in Marbella where some of the players are already there. So if they haven't said it's an under-23s game, so the fact it's being touted as an Arsenal 11...
Normally when they do those, it's just youngsters, isn't it?
They don't start training until tomorrow.
No, but some of them are already trained.
Yeah, but they don't...
So you expecting to see there then?
None of them.
Well, I'd like to see at least one because...
Right,
Put
your prediction out on again, who's going to be there and who's not, and we'll come back next week and we'll assess what you've said, so come on.
It would be wonderful if I could meet Martin Odegaard because that's the other thing. Because at Boreham Wood,
Odegaard ain't going to be at Boreham Wood to play.
Yeah, but they're charging for tickets. It's not like a freebie like the under-23s.
Yeah, but
I've paid money for it.
Tenner.
It's £14. Yeah, but it's still money. And
so you're saying Martin Odegaard's going to be there? I'd like to see
Martin Odegaard there. Right. I'd like to. I'm not saying I don't know who's going to be there, but I do know that on that training camp,
£14 is not.
They've had. They've had Nketiah, Smith Rowe, Jesus has been there,
a lot of those
and
players.
I could get to meet them.
You think they'll be there at Boreham Wood?
No,
I think at least one of them will be. Should be £14.
Just thinking about the money he's spending. Oh boy! Listen, we've reached the end of the show today. I hope you've enjoyed it. Don't forget, as I said, we're closing in now on the new season. Right, pre-season's going to be taking place. We are going to be over there. We will be. The whole crew over there in LA. We're going to be there for the two games, the Bournemouth game, the game against Manchester United. Then we move on to Philadelphia for that game as well. Looking forward to meeting all of the brilliant fans that they have over there in the US. They're absolutely fantastic. Honestly, if you've never had a chance to go out to the US and see those Arsenal fans out there, they are magnificent. They really are. So
it's the best.
Yeah,
it's going to be great.
It's the best thing of the whole. We love going to European games and all that, but the tour, is just what I mean.
It's going to be good. So
it's just. Well, we're very, very, very fortunate.
So look out for the content that we're going to have coming from there. We're going to be here, there, and everywhere.
Swimming competitions.
Yeah. Well,
if you can stay underwater for 5 minutes,
do that.
So make sure you
5 minutes, but I don't mind competition.
Well, we'll try.
Yeah. Make sure you check that out. And just one thing I have to say is good luck to England on Sunday, especially to our boys Saka and Declan Rice. We're wishing you all the best from everybody here on AFTV. All Arsenal fans, I'm sure, wishing them all the best as well, unless they're Spanish, of course. So listen, go and bring it home, man. Go and bring it home. It would be great. It would be a great moment for those Arsenal players if they can do it. Also, Raya. He's with the Spanish squad as well.
We'll have someone that's going to...
We're backing our English boys, man. Come on, we can do it. Actually, just before we go, prediction. What do you think the score's going to be?
2-1.
2-1 to who?
England.
Well, I've already said I thought Spain would win, so I will go 1-0 to Spain.
I'm going to go 2-1 England as well. 2-1 to England. and he's coming home. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.
The Invincible podcast. Myself, Robbie, and Lee Judges come together once a week to discuss all things Arsenal. Straight talking, considered discussion, brought to you by the fans of the only club in Football League history to go invincible.